So I grilled some Thai-style pork skewers for lunch the other day. The Thai name for these are mu ping, and they're a pretty popular street food, but can also be had as a meal with some Thai sticky rice. I marinated these using my version of the recipe and grilled them over some lump charcoal. I made a small platform with fire bricks to get the charcoals right up as close to the meat as I could. This way they would get a nice smoky charred flavor like you do with yakitori style barbecues, but you still have all the perks of cooking on your kettle, such as being able to cook with convection by putting your lid on. I made a Thai style sticky rice and a simple dipping sauce to go with this dish that I think really helped balance out the smoky and fatty flavors of these skewers. Okay, so the first thing I did was to thinly slice the meat. I used a 2 pound piece of pork shoulder for this. This should make about 4 servings. The authentic way to do this is to use a mixture of pork loin and pieces of pork fat, but I went with pork shoulder because it has a good combination of lean and fatty meat, and I didn't have to buy 2 separate pieces of meat. This is really hard to cut at room temperature, especially if you don't have a very sharp knife. So what I recommend is to put this in the freezer for at least 20 to 30 minutes before cutting, and it should make it a lot easier to cut. Once the meat was cut, I made the marinade. I started off by peeling one whole head of garlic. Most recipes call for about half this amount, but I like lots of garlic, so that's what I used. To save time, I usually use peeled garlic. You can find these in bulk at most Asian grocery stores, and this helps save a lot of time in prep. Once the garlic was peeled, I washed and separated the stems from about a quarter of a bunch of cilantro. The authentic recipes use cilantro root, but most recipes sell cilantro in bunches with these roots already cut out. So I just use the stems. They have a similar but slightly less intense flavor, but I think they're a pretty good substitute. I used a garlic press to mince the garlic into the bowl. If you have some leftover skins, also just throw them in the marinade. Don't throw those away. It's more flavor and less waste. Then I added 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Most recipes call for this soft yellow palm type of sugar, but I didn't have any, so I just used brown sugar. I then added a tablespoon of ground black pepper, 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, 2 tablespoons of regular soy sauce, and 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce. You can find most of these ingredients at your local Asian grocer if you have one, or in the international section of most larger grocery stores. Now I blended this all up. If you have a mortar and pestle, you can mash it up in there, but I just used a food processor. A mortar and pestle is better because it crushes the herbs, releasing their oils. But if you are in a pinch and you're short for time, you can use a food processor because it's a whole lot more convenient. Once it's blended, mix it in with the sliced pork. Try to evenly coat each piece. This isn't a lot of marinade, so try and spread it out thinly. You can store this in a container with some saran wrap, but I'm using a Ziploc bag. I put it in the fridge to marinate overnight. So what's your favorite Asian street food? Let me know in the comments below and I'll make a video on the most requested one. And just a reminder to stick around until the end and I'll show you my recipe for a really simple dipping sauce and how I made Thai sticky rice. So I put the rice on before I started grilling so it could cook. For this I used Thai sweet rice. I got this from my local Asian grocery store, but you can also find it in most supermarkets. To get the rice consistency, most recipes have the rice soaked overnight, but I skipped this step by using a rice cooker. I used about 1.5 cups of water to 1 cup of rice and used the white rice setting on my rice cooker. In total, this took about an hour or so, so I could let it do its thing while I moved on to grilling. So I grilled these on my Weber Kettle. I put the charcoal on a small platform I built with fire bricks to get them closer to the grates. I switched to lump charcoal this time. I used briquettes in my last video and they just don't get hot enough unless you layer them. But if you're doing that, you end up using a ton of more charcoal. I lit the charcoal with a blowtorch. I could have used a chimney, but pouring the hot charcoal on this platform would have been kind of tricky, and using a blowtorch was a whole lot more fun. Try to get the parts of the coal lit with the blowtorch evenly so that the heat can evenly distribute. Okay, so I'm using a Santa Maria style attachment for my Weber kettle. So once the charcoals were lit, I brought the grate down. I gave it a couple of minutes to allow it to heat up. At this point, you can put on your cooking spray to prevent these skewers from sticking, but this is pork shoulder. It has a ton of fat, so you really don't have to worry about the skewer sticking too much. I try to position the skewers directly over the charcoal. I want the puffs of smoke that come up when the fat hits the hot charcoal. Okay, so if you're starting to see things are burning, you can shift the skewers around. Because of my Santa Maria style grill, I can actually raise the grate up if I'm starting to see things are burning. Okay, as the skewers cooked, I basted them with coconut cream. This allowed them to caramelize and gave them a nice sticky glaze. I ended up basting them about 2 times on each side, turning after each time to allow the glaze to caramelize. As the skewers cooked, I actually rotated the grate on my kettle to make sure all parts of the skewers were evenly cooked. This is really easy to do on the Weber Kettle, and it's one of the reasons why I love cooking on it. Now, the skewers took about 10 minutes or so to cook, and once they were done, I took them off the grill. Okay, now for the dipping sauce. I needed something spicy and sour to cut the richness and the fattiness of these skewers, so I made a Thai style chili vinegar dipping sauce. To make this, I used half a cup of Asian style fish sauce, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 6 minced garlic cloves, about 4 teaspoons of dried chili flakes, 1.5 cup of apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of diced cilantro. This sauce also calls for toasted rice powder, which can be made by making a powder of dried and roasted sweet rice. I didn't have any, so I didn't use it, and it was still pretty good. But the rice powder would have thickened the sauce and given it a bit of a nuttier flavor. Again, I used my magic bullet to blend everything together. And once everything's blended and plated, we're done. A Thai style barbecue skewer plate. Let me know what recipes you want me to make next in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.